Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you are. This is Brian Todd, and I have with me our two esteemed guests, Ryan Masters and Antonio Centeno. And also on the line with us today is John Paul Mendocha, and you have shown up for our little private YouTube Q&A session. And we're going to devote, I think, up to about 60 minutes to this to ensure that your questions can get answered. And it's great to have you here. So any questions that you have from the webinar that we did 2 days ago, I want you to have those sort of roiling and boiling inside your mind and start typing those into the little question box here in the GoToWebinar control panel, and type those in, and we'll start taking them. In the meantime, Ryan and Antonio, I want to welcome you back and just say thanks for sharing the other day, and thanks for being on again today. And why don't you give us a little bit of a recap or a summary of some of the main things that you shared 2 days ago?
Yeah, well, thanks for having us. It's definitely a blast to be here, and yeah, I would say a couple of the quick takeaways from Tuesday was that there's a lot of cheap traffic on YouTube, and we went over some methods to getting in front of it. And a key component to producing your videos is using that power intro, because that's what separates branding videos that get views from direct response videos that get email list subscribers and sales.
No, good stuff, Ryan. This is Antonio, everyone, and I want you guys to know in the Q&A that we see out there, Chris, Carla, Elaine, Paul, Richard, Michael, Leonardo, Elaine, that we didn't get to answer, and I was biting at the bit to be able to answer some of your guys' questions. So I'm really excited to have you guys back, and can't wait to jump in. If you're sending in questions, I would love for you to send. If you've got a YouTube channel, especially already, I would love for you to be able to send us that info. I'm kind of sitting in the background, and I'm going back and looking at some of the questions that you guys submitted, some of you guys up to a week ago, and I'm going to try to answer some of those. We're not going to try to repeat any of the questions that we answered in the last time, but if you do need further clarification and you're here currently, do not be afraid to ask. All right.
Well, so I will pick the first one off the top of the heap that came in from Cheryl, and that is, can you repeat your 17-second power intro? What would you say if you don't have a white paper or some other offer for them to download and you just want them to visit your website?
Yeah, so two questions there. Let me see if I can get back to the slide. But so the power intro is 3 parts, and it is the hook, the credibility statement, and the call to action. So the hook is we're hooking them into the video as far as why they want to. Credibility is some type of credibility statement that explains, and you don't have to get crazy here, but just why you are an authority to talk about whatever it is you're talking about. And then the call to action is what you want them to do. So I would really look at the second question that you asked. Sounds like you don't have a lead magnet right now, and I would really devote resources to creating one of those, because asking someone to come browse my website, it's just not as enticing. There's no benefit for them in that statement. Like, people are busy and they want to know, what's in it for me, what's in it for me. So you can just create, it doesn't have to be anything extensive. It could be a 1-page PDF cheat sheet. It could be a 5-minute MP3 of you talking about whatever the content is. Like, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but you do want to have that lead magnet so that you can give them a good call to action in return. Because you don't want them to just come to your website. Like, you want their email list, just like Perry, and Brian teach about, because once you have them on your email, you get multiple attempts to sell them versus one-shot deal.
Hey, Cheryl, really quick, I'll add to that. So have you heard of Parkinson's? Has anyone out there heard of Parkinson's law? Michael, what about you? Richard, Tom? Tom, I know you've heard of it. So Parkinson's Law, you guys remember back in college or back to school, how if you had 2 weeks to work on a paper, you would spend 2 weeks on it. Or if you had 2 hours for that same paper, you would get it done in 2 hours. So Cheryl, I would challenge you to, how can you create a lead magnet and give yourself only 2 hours to build it? Yes, you open up a Word document, you maybe create a one-page checklist of whatever, and Cheryl, maybe you want to tell us a little bit more about your industry, but whatever your industry is, let's say that you are into aquariums and you're into aquatic fish, the 7 things that you have to do, otherwise you will kill your fish. So, yeah, I mean, literally, if somebody, that scares people, and nothing gets people to click and to interact to find out, oh, I do not want to kill my fish. I just spent $200 on this, saltwater fancy fish. And that can be one page, Cheryl, that you actually turn into a PDF, and all of a sudden you've got it. And you know this information if you are an expert in your industry, and you may not think that's super valuable, but people don't need I've got a 47-page ebook. I know that's a lot of information, but it doesn't have to be 47 pages. It could be 7, it could be one solid page of just good info, a crib sheet. There's a guy we know called the Sales Whisperer, and his thing, which actually I gave him my email address. I didn't really think it was worth it, but what Wes does over there is that he has a crib sheet. Basically, it's like he took one page and he filled it full of information, and so it's like a cheat sheet that you could have used in high school, and that's what he does. Now, it probably only took him a couple days to put that together, but I'm challenging you. I think you could do it actually in a couple hours if you put yourself in that position.
I have always had good experience with putting those time constraints on there. And yeah, I think the formal statement of Parkinson's Law is that work always expands to fill the time allotted for it. So it's kind of a cousin of expenditure rises to meet income, but that's another conversation. So let's see. Leonardo asked the question. You said that where in-stream videos are concerned, the landing page has to be Google approved. Is there a way around that? And have we understood that correctly?
Yeah, so the landing page, exactly, it does have to be approved on the Google in-stream ads. But there is a workaround, and what that is, again, is it uses the Power Intro. And on the in-stream ad, what you have to do is instead of sending them to the landing page directly, the in-stream ad takes them to your video inside of YouTube. So it would like take them to this video right here, and then in that video, again, in the first 17 seconds, you're issuing that call to action, and you have the link right here in the description, and that's what gets them off of YouTube and onto your email list. And that's how I do it. That's how I've done it since day one, because my site has always been suspended.
Very good. Let's see. Dirk asked this question, and Dirk, you raised this on Tuesday, I believe it was, and we weren't able to get around to it. So now's the time. What would you recommend for an approach to create, market, and get traffic to a YouTube video for a service or product in the compliance industry that is required by law? So
I have a friend, Jeff Rose, and he's in the finance industry. And he's actually, what he did is, I know he had to have he actually dropped one of his series licenses, and that enabled him to, in a sense, more freely create content. Now, that's an extreme example of simply dropping, because I don't know exactly, Dirk, and we can talk offline a little bit more about what your industry is and what the laws are. But it could also be that you set up and you bring in a contractor, and in a sense, this is where working maybe with an outside company who simply sends you the traffic, but they're not technically part of you as well. Also, Dirk, I don't know what country you're in, so again, I'm kind of making some general assumptions here, but it is something that I think it's a matter of creativity and figuring out, okay, how can we do this at the same time, not going against there, but it is something I've seen people in the finance industry. Lawyers are out there using this, and it's maybe you can. I'm going to go down to the bottom of the questions. Can you maybe tell us a little bit more about? Okay, you're in the U.S. And yep, food safety. Okay, that's actually so I would say Dirk, are you selling business to business, or is it more, are you going to you working with private individuals? Or so just in general of food safety, it is something that it may be something that you have to work with a private company on this, and that's a way to distance yourself. Both sometimes it's business to business, but we also sell to individuals who require the certification. Okay, I'd have to, actually, this is something, but again, I'll use the example of Jeff Rose. He simply was able to distance himself and to get rid of the requirement by losing the actual certification that required it. He discovered in his business he could be more profitable by going after that. So again, that was a big decision. But Dirk, I would say setting up a there's got to be a legal way to set up a veil and to be able to protect yourself in that way.
Yeah, and you also want to look at, for anybody, the videos don't necessarily have to be directly about whatever it is, the service that you're selling. You know, this is where it's important that you understand your sales funnel, and the higher up the sales funnel you go, the wider it is, which means the more mass there's there, and the broader the message is. So are there, this is probably, are there like cooking videos that you could do that would be appealing to your customers? So look at again, this goes back to the 3 crucial question sheet. Look at the target. What other problems do they have? It doesn't have to be specific to your service, but it could be food related problems. I'm sure there's tons, as far as whether it's ordering supplies or whatnot, that you could create content talking about, get them off YouTube and get them on your email list. That's another angle you can take.
So let's see. Alan asks this: does the YouTube channel play any role in monetizing or expanding the reach of videos? If so, can you explain that?
So Elaine, you may want to give me a little bit more detail in your question, but I will tell you that I get paid by YouTube. I mean, it's not crazy amount of money, but I allow AdSense onto my videos. I know Ryan does the same. It's not retirement money or anything, but it's a nice amount. I get a couple $1,000s every single month. But I get on average about 20,000 views a day. I'm also in the clothing industry, so there's a bit, I think, more monetization there. If you're in the business area and you're talking about that, I think you're going to get more for the ads over there. I know, Ryan, in the fitness industry, I think you get a little bit less, and we've talked about this. So there is, there's a nice monetization there. Basically, no one ever complains about, they basically blame it on YouTube for the ads. Now, I have friends such as James Wedmore. He's told me straight off I shouldn't even have ads. Because I do promote my own products again and again in my videos, and he thinks I would be more effective. I've tested it. I didn't really notice that. But your second part of the question is expanding the reach of videos. Yes, YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. I mean, Google, we talked about this initially, Ryan did, that Google bought YouTube because they saw how big they were going to get. More people search on Google than search. I mean, there's some data out there that YouTube is bigger. There's more search and more activity on YouTube than there is Facebook. So, we're talking, it is huge. And my best videos have, in a sense, picked up how to roll your shirt sleeves. Go ahead and type it into Google. You're probably going to see my video pop up. I did not know this video was going to get picked up and that there was such a need for 1 million men to learn how to roll your sleeves, but apparently there is. And another one that just went viral for me, or semi-viral for my industry, is how to tuck in your shirt. I couldn't predict these things, but because they resonated with the Google, or with the YouTube search engine, they resonated with the Google organic search as well. So it does. I think it's a long tail strategy and not necessarily the pay per click, which I know many of you guys, that's what Ryan's expertise is. But it is something that, yes, it will pop up, and I think it's a great way to separate yourself, because Google still uses the thumbnail as well to whenever you're looking at the search engines. If you look for my videos like how to tuck in a shirt, go ahead and do a Google search. My video will probably pop up, and it actually appears differently because Google wants to help people differentiate in organic search from a video to just a text document.
Right.
Very good. Let's see. So Chris had a couple of questions. He says, um, is YouTube advertising primarily used for acquiring an email list? Because I sell very custom products. Um, and as a follow-on to that, he says, after thinking this through, it appears that people don't come to YouTube searching for a product specifically, but you are trying to hook them when they're reading about, looking at, watching
Exactly.
something similar. Is that?
That's Chris, you're right on, man, and that's the thing. Like, and this is what separates people who are able to use YouTube from those who don't, and that is, people are not necessarily on YouTube typing in buy X product. In fact, they're not on there doing that. And YouTube it's more of a top of the sales funnel lead source, and so this is where you have to look at your sales funnel and say, okay, someone who buys these custom products, what are they interested in? What do they like to do? And what can I talk about that's related to those? Because that's how you get them, and you get them before they're even searching for buying, and then when they're ready to buy, it's not even a question, as they come right to you. So
But I
yeah,
would also like to say organically, you can create videos of how to buy things. That's been my focus for the last 6 months, is how to buy a casual summer shirt. If you type that into Google now, we're popping up there, and we've got that keyword, so we're actually grabbing the person right before they're ready to buy to help make an informed decision. And even though I'm a custom clothier, and people could say, "Oh, you're incredibly biased," that's where I flip that, and I'm like, well, no, that makes me qualified to teach you about it. And I think you're smart enough to be able to tell if I'm leading you one direction or another.
So um, one of the questions that we've been asked actually has to do, Ryan and Antonio, with your training, um, and because the opportunity for training presented the other day was involved time with you in Colorado, so on, and building a YouTube channel. And the question is, if I'm not able to make it to Colorado, what are the options available to me?
yeah. Well, we were talking about yeah, that was something that we saw even on the webinar. People were interested in, hey, we want to kind of take the next step, but we don't have the resources or time to fly out to Rocky Mountain High, and Antonio and I are going to be putting together a training course with YouTube. So you can, the self-paced study courses you can do at home. We have 5 more sessions that we're planning to go through, plus group coaching calls and follow-up, so we can really walk you through building a YouTube sales funnel and getting traffic off of YouTube and onto your email list.
Well, and this is John Mendoza. I'd like to add to that, just for all of you out there. And by the way, this is fascinating to listen to these two guys talking about the ways that they have, dissected YouTube and how they're really using it in a very powerful way. Is that this training that, if you will, the $10,000 is really the fastest way to get an operational YouTube channel. I know that some of you are sitting there going, well, I don't think that's going to work for me, whether it's the cost of travel, being away from, from family, whatever that is. And then really that break point, as you know, as we are always trying to make sure that we're responsive to our customers and the audience, is this middle ground, if you will. And what I'd like to add to that is that whatever you have paid towards where you are today, the first training in this Q&A, which is really an extension of that training, let's say it's $200. The cost of the ongoing training, the at least additional 5 sessions, is $997. We're going to credit you that $200, so your additional investment is only $797, and you have until August 5th to make that decision to go forward and do that. What I can tell you is, having spent some time on the phone and in person with Ryan, is that these guys have so much information and knowledge about how to take YouTube and turn it inside out and make it your own. The fact that they've generated over 500 videos is just, without a doubt, they understand it from the inside. They can tell you how to make sure that you're not making the dumb mistakes and doing all the things that, as they pointed these things out to me, changed how I went out and looked at YouTube and what you should and shouldn't do. So I think that it's an extraordinary opportunity. I'm glad that they're revealing these secrets, and they're really doing this for the first time. And I believe that for everyone who wants a competitive advantage, a way that your competitors can't steal your information, they can't copy what you're doing, and you can get you into the YouTube, this sounds like an extraordinary step forward. One just little thing while I was sitting there listening to them and taking notes is the fact that that there's somebody has a book on Amazon that just tells you about the complete guide to men's pocket squares. Now, that's whoever knew that was a topic that we needed to have at least a book. I'm sure that Antonio has probably 2 videos, and he'll tell you how to fold it, how to press it, how to clean it, how to get the right one. But the most important thing is think about it. He's inside his customer's head that he is covering everything for his space. So not only is he mapping out this niche or this sub niche or micro niche, but he's covering every piece of this, and he's using video in a way that is clever, it's entertaining, it pulls people in, and he's building a business every day. So I think that there's an extraordinary opportunity out there right now. Cost per click has gone up at Google. Obviously, they don't have enough corporate jets. So think about this as a way to siphon off some of that traffic, and not just to have something that's a cool, clever video, but a video that sells. I'm really excited that we were able to convince them to find that break point. So if you can't afford the $10,000, which, by the way, I believe is absolutely a bargain, if you can't do that because of just where you are financially, the $997 step is available for each and every one of you, and we're going to give you all of the money that you've invested so far as a credit back against this. So that's got an August 5th deadline. I'm going to hand it back to Brian to get us back to some more questions, but I think that was really important to know. There is a step in between, and it isn't halfway. It's $1,000.
Yeah, well, and Augustine said, are you guys going to do something like an 80/20 YouTube Express? And the answer is yes. It's actually called 80/20 YouTube Fast Track. The price point is actually $9.99, and so I provided the link in the chat box here, perrymarshall.com/YouTube-study, all lowercase, and so you can click over there and look at that offering, and that is that as we say, gets you the 80/20 of what they'll be providing in much greater depth with our friends in Colorado. So definitely check that out. I know that will be just absolutely excellent. Let's see. So Leonardo asks, he says, my target group is very small, German-speaking speakers, and there are not a lot of YouTube videos. Any ideas on how I can get more leads in that little narrow niche?
Yeah, so with that, the first thing you want to look at, make sure you're using is remarketing. So you're remarketing to traffic that comes to your, I don't know how you get traffic now, but I'm assuming you have a blog or a website, and so you want to have remarketing on that so that the people who visit it are seeing your YouTube ads when they're on YouTube, no matter what they're watching. That's step number one. That's the quick win, and that applies for anybody. Then you have to look at, again, we're looking at the target. So German-speaking speakers, like our natural inclination based on AdWords, is to think, okay, well, let's find speaking videos in German and get in front of those. And that would be one place, I guess, to look. But you also have to look at, remember, these are people. What are they speaking on? What are their interests? What are their hobbies? What do they like? Because they're going to be watching videos related to that. And so that's where you have to think a little bit right angle, like Perry talks about, and say, okay, what other content would they be consuming? And you can look at this is again why we start with the remarketing, because it's just like cheating, because once that's been running for a little bit, you can look at the placement report of your remarketing campaigns and see what videos your prospects are watching, and then you can from there build out and target them individually, or find like videos and target those as well.
So Tom asks kind of a two-part question. He says, any tips or advice you can give me with Google Display Network and in-stream ads and how those tie together? He says, is it cheaper to go from YouTube to a YouTube video than YouTube to a website?
Yeah, the Google Display Network, I know, Tom, we were talking, I was talking actually with Gideon Shawick about this the other day, and neither of us have seen that work well as far as Google Display Network with video ads. So not banner ads, but Google Display Network video ads. Like, we just haven't, just a lot of garbage there. That's not to say it can't work, but I just haven't focused any time on it because it's been a money suck. And then, what was this? Is it cheaper to...
Is it cheaper to go from YouTube to a YouTube video than YouTube to a website?
Yeah, I have found that staying inside of it's kind of like Facebook. I found that not huge variances, but I have seen it's a little bit cheaper when you keep them inside the YouTube ecosystem, but not enough to where it's like, oh, it's a huge cost variance. I mean, it's like 5 cents versus 7 or 8 cents. 5 cents a lot on my in-display ads versus 8 cents on the in-stream. But then sometimes I've seen 4 cents on the in-stream. So yeah, I wouldn't say that there's a strong bias towards keeping them inside YouTube if you don't have to.
Got it. So Philip then asks this, a little longer question. He says, I have an info product in real estate investing, and I want to build it out so that becoming our JV is more attractive than just ripping off our product. I've already seen live seminar guys talking about strategy. We used to speak for a seminar company, and they don't have products yet and have sent us traffic unknowingly.
Nice.
A few small fries who used to be affiliated with that company are trying to teach live but have never done the strategy themselves. So given that information from Philip, what kind of plan would you suggest? He also adds that his product is one of a kind and it's very unique.
Yeah, well, I would look at, so we want to build it out. We have a info product real estate. The main thing that I've seen from like real estate guys when I'm looking at their videos and critiquing and just live seminar stuff is they give too much information. Like, they basically take their seminar trainings and they put those videos on YouTube, or they put their speaking sessions on YouTube, and that's not the way to do it. It's like, people go on. There's something important for everybody. People go on YouTube and watch videos to be entertained first. Absolutely number one, entertained. It doesn't matter if you're giving them the information that would give them a Harvard degree, the equivalent of a Harvard degree in 5 minutes. If it's boring and not entertaining, they're gone and they're not going to watch. So with that in mind, I would look at the content that you teach, find the hot buttons, the emotional topics that people are always talking about, and really you can just do a video on each topic, just kind of riffing about whatever the pains are and almost kind of repeating them back to them. Well, again, make sure you have the power intro in there so you're getting them off the videos and onto your list. But that's one place that I would start.
Another thing with and Philip, are you still out there? It looked like you left the conversation, but I would say, if no one is really, you're in a crowded market space. I mean, as soon as you talk about real estate investing, there's a lot out there. However, not as many people get really focused in on the specific areas, and that's where you you're still out there. So this is where you can definitely dominate on YouTube, is, again, go geo-specific and make sure that that's in there. But the beautiful thing about video is, if you think of, if I say book, Lane, if I say book, Dirk, book, what price do you think? Michael, what do you think? Paul, Richard, Tom, if I say book, if I say you're going to pay $100 for a book, you think expensive or cheap? Now, if you're going to pay $100 for online training, all of a sudden, that's inexpensive. So the great thing with video is there is value in terms of the perception of the training that's being delivered. And I think it's going to be easier if you can master the video, and you can't just repurpose. A lot of people try to do that. I see, great, TED videos. The ones that do really well aren't the ones that are simply repurposed, and they're actually the TED videos that are, like Ryan said, they're entertaining, and also they're specifically made to be viewed. They've been audio edited, they've been cut right, and it's probably, there's a really smart guy named Ramit Sethi, and he talks about how to be able to go from good to great, it's not too much extra to go that extra mile. It does require, like 30 to 50% more of your time and energy, but the return on investment, you can charge, 5 to 10 times more. So I would say, if you come in and you master this, there's no reason you shouldn't be going to be the top in your industry, at least for your specific area. I know you're in an ultra competitive market, but that's where Ryan has got a lot of experience because he's been able to make a dent in the fitness industry, which is more competitive than I think anything else out there.
It's a little crowded.
Well, so we got a question in from Liz, who, by the way, her nickname is the Iditarod's littlest musher. And Liz, I think I've heard your story, but gonna have to hear it in more detail sometimes because that's fascinating. So, on the idea of mushing and on the theme of mushing and dogs, she asked this question, which from a USP point of view is absolutely the right question to be asking, but I'll read it here. She says, how do you use video and YouTube to differentiate what you don't do? So I offer training and coaching on the mental and emotional side of an owner's relationship with their dog. It is not just mechanical dog training, because there are a gazillion videos already on that theme. So what suggestions do you have on how to use those mechanical obedience training videos to differentiate my own offerings, or how to have video offerings of a relationship style topic?
Yeah, that's perfect, and video is great for that because you can go right into it and talk about, you can have videos talking about why mechanical dog training, you don't want to say, I guess wherever your stance is, you don't have to say it's bad, but maybe why it's not the real problem. The real problem is the emotion, is the mental emotional side. So you can just do videos. This is something that I do all the time, again, in fitness, very competitive. So guys want to know, well, what's the best home workout? Well, I don't teach how to work out at home. Like my philosophy, I believe, if a guy's not willing to make the investment to go to the gym or build a real gym in his home, then the training I provide is not going to help him. And so I have videos where I talk about that. And this kind of talks to what Perry talks about in the 80-20 book about polarizing the market. Again, you're not going out to like make enemies, but you just kind of taking a stand and saying, hey, mechanical dog training is not the way to go, and the reason why is X, Y, Z, and the benefits of what you're going to get from the emotional side that I teach, or just giving them examples in different videos is a perfect way to demonstrate, really differentiate yourself. And then just to take it further, you could have on all those mechanical dog videos, you could run in-stream ads right in front and say, stop, warning, like if you're training your dog this way, you can, whatever the damage is, but if you come to this video, I'll teach you the solution type of thing.
Yeah, I like that advice, and it's I think we are assuming correctly, me not knowing more about Liz and what she's doing, that Liz, that you want to contrast yourself against them because what you teach and what you provide is more effective or much better for the dog or goes into much greater depth or something like that.
Yeah, it sounds like more the root cause.
Right. And it is true that anything you provide to people, especially people going and looking for information on dog training, when you're like flashing a message that says, look, there's a smarter way to do this, a much smarter, much more effective way to do this, and it's not traditional mechanical dog training. you capture a portion of the audience that wants to feel like they're smarter than everyone else. And that's really key. In fact, Rich Schefren calls that giving people social currency. He calls it social currency. Like, you provide a video that explains what's wrong with mechanical dog training. People watch that video and suddenly, in literally a matter of minutes, they think they are 10 times smarter than everyone out there who has ever tried to train their dog. Now, whether they actually are or not is irrelevant. They feel like they're smarter.
Right.
And therefore they actually, without realizing it, become your advocate. Like, oh, well, you need to study the Iditarod's Littlest Musher materials, because they teach things about dog training that you don't understand, and that, you know, your local dog obedience school just completely doesn't get. And they become an advocate for themselves, thinking they're smarter, and an advocate for you, because you're teaching something no one else is. So I'm going to shut up about that, because I think you get the point. But
hey, Brian, I mean, you guys are so into, you know, talking about this video. I mean, I got inspired. I sat up. I'm wagging my tail. So I got to say at least a couple things.
John is a dog lover, so
I have dogs. So one of the things I would say to you is that you know that your message is right. So if you see comments that say you're a breath of fresh air, if the comments say I wish I had known about you years ago, the best comment or the best response you're ever going to get is, I watched your video and cried to think about what I had done wrong with my, you know, dog, you know, before. So that's the kind of emotional attachment that you have to do, and most of the, and I've watched a few dog training videos online, and most of them look like somebody is being held captive. So you don't want to sound like you're being held captive.
gives a new meaning to the phrase "crying dog story." So,
exactly.
So let's see. I was so wrapped up in that wonderful question that Cheryl again asked this question: would you talk a bit more on how to optimize organic traffic for YouTube?
Well, I don't know how. I mean, this is a whole separate topic from, I know what a lot of the point of the Q&A. I know a lot of this, because it's Perry's audience, we wanted to stay more towards pay-per-click, but I will tell you, it is very similar to the best practices that we see on just a regular search side. So it's always more important. Think about, there was a book I read, I remember in 2006, and it talked about Sergey and Larry over at Google when they first founded it. Does anyone know what they called Google when they first started the company? And it gives you an insight to their psyche. This is, I mean, they wrote, Elaine, do you know? Leonardo? Michael? And does anyone know what was originally Google's, what was the secret name of Google? Come on, can anyone guess this? Let's see, anyone? No. Okay.
I should know this, and I don't. So
it was Backrub. They called it Backrub. No, it wasn't Ask Jeeves. Close. No, but why do you think they called it Backrub? Because it was all about what other people thought. They realized the problem with search engines is why they were broke. If you understand that, it's a great book, by the way, still applies. If you understand timeless principles, then all of a sudden you realize what really does matter. And of course, you can go the black hat route. That's one path. But I'm more a fan of thinking long term of how I want something to pop up. And it's easier, in my opinion, just to invest. So you want other people to say great things about you. How do people say great things about you on the web? They link to you. They interact with you. And that's been my specialty, is creating timeless, useful content that teaches, has a bit of the entertainment, but also teaches you how to do that thing. And then, of course, I've got my 17-second, sometimes a little bit longer, power pitch in there. So, Cheryl, my answer to you would always be thinking about, and I think you mentioned you're in the gardening industry. So, you know, thinking about, I mean, things really haven't changed, except people have become worse gardeners than we probably, I mean, most of our grandparents would just skill us or they would just run circles around us when it comes to actually being able to grow something in the ground. And so those, you know, you can create some very timeless information and be able to put that out there. So,
yeah, and just to add on that, because I know people were asking on Tuesday, we just want to hammer home that just like with the website, You don't have one web page on your site and say, okay, I've got one page of content. How do I rank this? You know, that would never happen. You know that would never happen. So it's the same thing with YouTube. If you're serious about generating organic traffic, it's a longer term play, and you don't have one video and say, okay, now we optimize this. No, you just keep talking about longer tail topics. Like a good one example that I came across, Antonio, randomly when I bought this Spartan ring that I have, and I was like, oh man, what finger do I put it on? You know, I don't know. I'm not married. Where does it go? And so I typed in like what finger does ring go on or whatever, and the first video that showed up, the first in the Google search, the first thing that came up was Antonio's video, and then he had an article right underneath of it. So bam, there you go. So that's another thing, is when you're making all these videos and they're a little more longer tail topics, that's how you get your vines and your roots out, so that you rank both inside of YouTube and on Google.
So Ryan and I, you know, we've talked about both ends. I mean, Ryan's specialty is the whole pay-per-click side. Mine's more the organic. And it's funny because we've been masterminding and known each other now for years. And we've noticed that actually when you combine the two, that's when the magic happens. You can go down one route, another one you can, but it's when you bring them together, it's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's actually more like 3 × 3 = 9, in terms of you get a lot more value when you can start to bring this all together. And you stop thinking about videos, but you start thinking about the channel and how you're going to grow that.
Right.
So, Michael, I'm going to raise your question, and before I do that, while we're answering this question, it'd be nice to know about your actual market and what market you're in. So, Michael says, do you have any tips on making educational videos entertaining? Because there's a lot of BS in our market, which I believe confuses people, and by educating them, I believe we can break through. And not sure how to make these videos entertaining. So Michael, he says our product does not inherently generate an emotional response, and this is great because he says he's in the septic industry. So thank you, Michael, for that bit of feedback. Interesting industry.
I love this.
Now I want to hear what Ryan and Antonio have to say.
I've got a story for this guy. I mean,
perfect.
The
So
other day,
all
I live in an old house, and we couldn't get the. I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm just getting so excited about this.
Michael says people are not attached to their waste,
But
they are attached to getting rid of it. So.
Exactly. I had the problem the other day. I could not. I live in a 110-year-old Victorian house, and does anyone can imagine? Michael, you've probably had this. What's the problem with my plumbing? Is we use clay pipes, and the tree roots are getting in there. Paul, what do you think happens? Dirk, Carla? Oh my gosh! We had backup. Believe me, this is an urgent problem when you've got it backing up in the house. And I stop everything, and guess what? The first people I call, they come over, and these people are charging me $200 an hour. What do you think? Did they solve my problem, Elizabeth? Lane, what do you think? Leonardo? No. It's exactly just like England. And guys, it was horrible. They spent 3 hours, cost me almost $1,000, and they fixed my problem for 3 days, and then it came back. You know what would have solved my problem? If the third person I would have called would have actually explained to me that they've got to bring in the right type of equipment. So the third guy that came in, little prairie septic in Gresham here, Wisconsin, these guys came in with these heavy duty machines. And because I've got 100 feet, which is about 30 yards or 30 meters of pipe that they've got to clear the roots out of. So these guys brought in this heavy duty machine, and it just cleaned. I mean, literally within 40 minutes they cleaned it out. Cost me $150. I could have saved $1,000 if somebody could have educated me on what needs to happen here. And I see so many people in these critical industries that are not taking the lead in simply providing. Like, I don't care how well you educate me on how to do this. I don't have the equipment to do this. However, I will make a smart buying decision if you can teach me about this. And so I think there is huge opportunity, Michael, in areas like that, because there's I mean, when it's backed up, I'm not gonna put this off till next week. Like, I'm gonna pay the money and make it happen.
Well, and Antonio, you're touching directly or indirectly on what I was actually going to say, which is you start with either a surprising question, and I mean this literally in your videos, after you've gotten through the front matter that Antonio and Ryan explain, your 17 seconds of front matter, you ask them a question they have never considered before, or a question in the video where the answer is a surprising answer they hadn't thought of. And it sounds to me like, in your case, the way to get a person's attention is to present the scenario of what happens if you got tree roots going through your old clay pipes, or something like that, that says what happens if this whole thing just goes wrong. What's it going to smell like on your property, right? And what's it going to do to all the rest of the plumbing in your house? I don't consider that entertaining. I consider that imminently compelling. And it all begins with you just asking the right question that gets people saying, holy crap, had not thought of that. Or holy crap, I did not know that that was what would happen if I hadn't done this. So either a surprising question or a question with a surprising answer is like literally the very first thing you put in any video on this topic. Ryan or Antonio, anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would chime in, again, thinking about, part of this goes for everybody here is this highlights how important it is that we understand our sales funnel, and our sales funnel is independent of whatever medium we're using, right? So Facebook, YouTube, Google, it doesn't matter. The sales funnel fits into that. So with the sales funnel, I don't know, Michael, if you're local, like the septic industry, if you're selling services local, or if you have some type of info product or something that you're selling remote. But that would help provide a strategy, because if it's local, now you're geo-targeting, and then you want to look at
nationwide, he says.
Nationwide. I guess looking at your current customers, what are problems? Because yes, like what Antonio pointed out, like when you have that issue, when you have an issue, it's a big problem, and you want to watch a video on it. But you're, again, with YouTube, we're getting them earlier in the funnel a little bit, so we want to know what other stuff are they doing that you can provide info on. So maybe it's just shot in the dark, but maybe it's on like, home reconstruction or remodeling your home, and so you have videos, content videos that talk about that weave in your education about the septic industry or whatever the service you provide, and that's how you chisel your way in. So you just think about, look at your current customers, what are the steps 2, 3, and 4 that led them to your problem, to having the problem beforehand. What were they doing ahead of time? And see if you can't talk to them about those issues. And now you're the trusted guy, you're their friend, you're their buddy. And when they have a so they don't contact us unless they have a problem.
Right.
Yeah. So.
So Brian, here's my take is that one of the things that he can do is have a video which then leads them to a checklist, and these are the things that you should check off that you know, so when you call the septic service you have better information.
Yes.
Which clearly Antonio did not know, and therefore you spend $1,000 needlessly because he couldn't connect with them and couldn't say stuff. He was saying what he did know, but what they didn't tell him was some of the other part. His industry, that industry, is absolutely exciting from the standpoint of you're dealing with urgency. Nobody's going to put that off for a couple of months. In fact, my neighbor just down the street had put a concrete slab over the top of his septic tank, and about 9 o'clock at night, I started hearing this boom, 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 went down and tried to figure it out, and he had a sledgehammer and was breaking the top off of breaking his big old slab up. So providing them with something so they can be better informed when they talk on the phone is probably a good thing. And as far as that edge, the edge is you need to tie into their emotional urgency, because they have several questions in their head. One is, how quickly can you fix it? Number 2, how permanent is the fix? And number 3, how much is all that going to cost?
Yep. That's pretty good. By the way, That's excellent. That's not just pretty good. And
Well,
what were
right.
those? What were those again, John? Because people are asking three questions. Number one,
Hey, I just say them. Yeah.
yeah, sorry, Mister
That's why we
Mister
record this thing, right?
Mister Not Recorded. Yeah, you should
Well,
see John's marketing DNA. But you mentioned you mentioned like how extensive the problem is going to be, how permanent the solution, and how much it was going to cost. Something to that effect.
right. Well, yeah. Basically, how quickly can you solve it? Second one is how permanent
Right.
is that solution,
Right.
and the final thing is how much is it going to cost? And I mean that's a basic, summary of it. But the big part of it is that the first thing is they're worried about getting the thing solved, but that may not
Mhm.
be the complete fix.
Well, so piggybacking on this, Chris asked the question. He says, "Would you say this type of advertising in the whole sales cycle is very similar to banner ads?" You can draw all kinds of parallels to this. And I know this that um, if I have a septic problem on my property and I see a banner ad that says something to the effect of 7 questions you must know the answer to before you call for repairs on your septic system. 7 mission critical questions or something like that. That works in a banner ad, and I would be surprised if that did not work in a video as well. So there are certainly very strong parallels between what goes in YouTube, what goes in simple Google ads, what goes in banner ads, and what goes on YouTube videos.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say that there's not there's the one thing missing with banner ads. There's quite a few things missing, but one of them is the social aspect and how basically you can throw gasoline on a video and it goes viral. I mean, we see this all the time with the video. So if you happen to hit something, I mean, I don't aim for it. Compare this to baseball. I'm a singles and doubles kind of guy. I'm just going consistently hitting singles and doubles. Occasionally I hit a home run, and it's not really planned. And I'm trying to get to the Hall of Fame here, knowing that I can strike out 7 out of 10 times. But I'm just going hitting my singles and doubles. Well, I think with banner ads, it just doesn't have that. It doesn't have that viral component in the same way that video can.
Yeah, so that's a good question and a good line of discussion just right there. So let's see, one of our attendees says, "Hi guys, there was mention that it's possible to create video remarketing based on which page was visited on the website. Can you revisit that and explain it again?"
Yeah, so let's see, who was asking that?
I see the name Jamal.
Jamal,
That
that's
may
right.
be a
Okay.
surname rather than a...
Gotcha. Yeah, so this would require that you have remarketing for your website set up, and I use Google Analytics, and you set that up. You have to make a modification to the code, but it allows you to create lists based on any page that someone visits on your website. And again, this goes back to targeting, so we know if someone is looking at your AdWords services page, or if somebody's looking at your dog training page, you know exactly what they're looking at, so you can create a video that speaks directly to them, just like they were sitting in front of you at your office.
You know what all of this speaks to, Brian, is the fact that there are so many aspects of exploiting YouTube traffic, which is why, if you look at the clock, we have zoomed through an hour, and I'm sure that there's more coming. There's more there, and in fact, there is more coming. And the best way to do it, if you can afford it, is to go spend some time in Denver with Ryan and Antonio, and walk out of there with a fully operational YouTube channel. If you can't do that, you need a YouTube sales funnel, and you have to do it properly and correctly, as we've been talking about. And for that, essentially, you can take the training that's going to be offered, which is up to or at least 5 additional sessions, and 2 coaching group sessions, and step out of that. And again, the price for that is $9.97. Whatever you've paid so far gets credited towards that. And I think that the thing that you'll discover, as we've just touched on today, is that this is, as in-depth as we've gone, the surface. These two gentlemen have great experience. When I got really excited talking to the two of them a couple months ago and got previewed on this material, anybody who does 500 videos, and they've done that collectively, and it's growing on a regular basis, learns a lot of things that you can't get any other way. And you just can't get it any other way, because you go out there and you try things and you see how this works and you see how that works. The fact that Ryan is a Planet Perry guy for a number of years, he's been doing pay-per-click. The fact that Antonio has found a way to take something like dress clothes, custom clothing, and is selling it via YouTube videos, I mean, remarkable. Ryan, of course, is in that very that very competitive space called fitness, where everybody is trying to come up with something new and different and be able to break free. So I think that it's an interesting mix of two different marketplaces, but really one philosophy. Would you agree with me, guys, that it's really one philosophy, which is how do you get videos that convert, and how do you get cheap traffic, and most importantly, how do you stand out and get heard in this very noisy world? Would you agree with that, guys?
Yeah,
I'm on
absolutely.
board.
And that's why I'm very excited. I hope many of you will join these two guys, work with them, and really learn the types of things that are going to take your business to that next level. If you've been stuck and you feel like, well, how do I kind of nudge it forward? I mean, think about it. Today we've talked about dog training. We've talked about septic systems. How can you get, further afield than those two? And we've talked about other things too. But the most important thing we've talked about is that YouTube is a way to tap into traffic that you can't get any other way. And frankly, I don't know where else you would get this information, because I'm on the hunt every day for talent, and these two gentlemen are very talented. Brian?
Well, just want to remind you, head over to perrymarshall.com/YouTube-study, all lowercase, and that's where you can sign up for the 80/20 YouTube Fast Track. Price is $9.99, and it'll give you the key 80/20 of everything that Ryan and Antonio will be covering in much, much greater depth while in Colorado. So
Now, didn't I say $9.97 and you just said $9.99? Well, no, you'll get somebody to say about the $2. So we'll have to make sure it's right.
Yeah, have to do that. So, yeah, very good. Ryan and Antonio, this has been absolutely terrific. Love hearing what your ideas are and different angles on this. Loved hearing about dog training. Loved hearing about septic tanks. Hoo boy. And so we'll see you in the training, and just want to say thanks so much for being here and helping our audience today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us. Are we wrapping this up here?
We are wrapping up.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys. And for those of you listening, really appreciate you being here. As you can tell, I mean, Ryan and I get super excited. We just, again, Google us. You can see we're the real deal. We've built up our companies. We're very passionate. And I mean, the more obscure, in fact, I think the more you think that YouTube doesn't apply to your industry, it's the same thing your competitors think. So you can keep going forward with that belief, or you can say, you know what? I'm going to be the person that dominates, and I'm going to be where, like Wayne Gretzky said, it's like, don't go to where the puck's at, go to where it's going to be. And, video is not going anywhere.
Absolutely. So it's a total land grab.
All right. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you on the training.
Perfect. Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye now.